Welcome to TheoTrade. This is Don Kaufman. October 13th, 2020. Minutes to go to the cash close here on this Tuesday afternoon with the S&P futures down 23. Let's go ahead and call the Nasdaq massively unchanged and the Russell taking some heat down almost 1%. We're an absolute slop fest, people. And a lot of this trade activity here is brought to you by, well, specifically the sectors that we've been talking about pretty much ad nauseum. It's the financials, okay, along with the energy sector against, of course, the monsters of tech. Let's actually break this down because, well, the financials, they have officially kicked off earnings season today. What did we get out of the financials? Well, ironically, better than expected. And to that, I actually am speaking specifically about JP Morgan. Of course, if we're going to talk about financials, let's get and cut to the chase. The mother of all financials here, along with Jamie Dimon, happens to be none other than JP Morgan. And I got to tell you, the second the bell went off, there was some sell-side activity. Here's an underlying that had traded quite a bit higher initially when the earnings came out, and that sell-side activity came in literally at the bell. Again, all of this on better than anticipated numbers, specifically out of JP Morgan. I kind of call this buy the rumor, just sell the financials. If you haven't looked at the financials on a year-to-date basis, something I talk about pretty extensively, but on a year-to-date basis, well, there they are. Down just shy of 30%, just shy of a 30% on a year-to-date basis. Well, that's specific to JP Morgan. If you take a look at the XLF itself, and the XLF is representative, of course, the ETF, but that also, of course, encompasses Berkshire Hathaway. It's down just about 20% on a year-to-date basis. So you got sell-side activity inside of the financials, and that's kind of twofold. One of the first things that could have really kind of sparked some of the sell side in here was we had some CPI, some of the inflation data come out this morning, and the inflation data, well, did not show inflation, and the bonds, they rallied on that. And the moment the bonds rallied, that takes the corresponding interest rate down. So if you take a look at the TNX actually dropped. It's a fairly large drop. So anytime interest rates are headed down, it starts to put pressure on the financials. So yeah. We heard some decent numbers out of JP Morgan, some decent numbers, of course, out of Citi. Actually, their trading operations are going fairly well. But surprisingly so, sell-side activity actually hits the sector. Along with that, pretty much every move that the financials have made lately, you've actually seen, okay, the energy sector play into this almost in concert. And you can see the energy sector down about 1.4% today, almost in line with what the financials are doing. This is something I happen to have covered specifically on this past weekend's update. Now, okay, let's just, jump right into, well, Mr. Toad's wild ride, which is none other than the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq, after having an absolutely stellar, just wild upside day yesterday and pulling back to a degree, okay, the Nasdaq is going to end today's trading session largely unchanged. However, we came in today and I looked at this and I'm like, wow, this is a mess here. When you start looking though, specifically at the monsters of tech, when I'm talking about the monsters of tech, that's Microsoft, which is slightly bid on the day by the tune of 1%. Apple, down about 2.5%. We'll talk about that momentarily. Of course, a major Apple event going on today. Facebook, largely unchanged. Amazon, which came out ripping out of the gate today, has actually had a little bit more sell-side activity. Again, kind of largely unchanged. It is a mess out there. So I wish I could tell you that there's, a key standout, but, I kind of have a tendency to call this a little bit of a slop fest. The advanced decline line is decisively negative. Nevertheless, a lot of that advanced decline line doesn't mean a whole lot when you have a stock like Amazon and or Google trading to the upside. In this particular case, you've got Microsoft, Amazon, and Google trading to the upside, Facebook largely flat. People, you got to understand something. That unto itself is enough to actually cause the Nasdaq a little bit of a bid. So why are the S&Ps kind of taking it on the chin? Well, again, the financials still carry a tremendous amount of weight. And one of the things that I continually express week in and week out is that, the financials, again, they're not nearly as large anymore, of course, as tech. Yeah, but financials plus energy, okay, net, those two added up can absolutely do some damage to the marketplace. And that's precisely what you're seeing here. So the S&Ps, as I said, they're going to end up down here 0.7, 0.8% on the trading session. Again, minutes to go. And this, this cash close can't come fast enough because there is a little bit of sell side activity hitting the marketplace right now. So a wild mixed bag of goods, and it kind of leaves you, where are we going from here? Well, if you remember back to the weekend update, I was talking about kind of a wicked binary move that we were expecting inside of the S&Ps, okay? And we got just that, right? The Nasdaq breaks to the upside, but at this point in time, the Nasdaq here, this is an absolutely parabolic move with just a hint of sell side activity kind of coming in today. The next 24 to 48 hours of trade are going to be pivotal. And if you're looking for, okay, pivotal which way? All right, so that's when we want to actually employ the use of none other than expected move. You guessed it, I talk about it ad nauseum. Remember, this week we are looking for about a $72 move higher or a $72 move lower. And a lot of people miss the fact that we actually clipped the upper edge of the expected move, boom, on Monday. We've kind of come off that pretty hard and fast, and we're kind of back stuck in the middle with you. But the point of this is huge room for movement the remainder of the week. But I'm going to tell you something right now. It's not so much, there's the closing bell, okay? It's not so much the SPX expected move that I'm paying attention to right now. It's actually, we're going to take the QQQ and we're going to come over here and we're going to apply auto expected moves. Yes. See, the QQQ is literally sitting at, right now, the closing bell, the upper edge of the expected move. In fact, even if you put this in like a 1 day, 1 minute, we are on it, people, on the edge of the upper, or should I say the upper edge of the expected move. And at this point in time, this is where things can get absolutely dicey. Any sell side activity. People, we can get driven right to the lower edge of that expected move. That would be roughly, 277 and change. At this point in time, from a probability point of view, there's a very high probability we close inside the expected move for the remainder of the week. But the point being, right here, right now, there is huge room for movement in the overall marketplace. We are not, in my estimation, nearly as binary. Now we're absolutely leaning a little bit to see some sell-side activity, throughout the course of this week. Now, ever the bear I am. But here, we have volatility that is slightly bid up. So volatility bids up throughout the course of the day. Now, obviously, you're looking at this, well, it looks like it sold off here a little bit. Yeah, volatility futures, though, are up some 67, 70 cents in here. And you can see a little bit of a bid coming into volatility. The VIX actually takes off very mildly to the upside. Take a quick look at the VVIX. The VVIX, once again, is actually breached above the 110 region. But all of your volatility indications are slightly bid up. But I got to tell you, when you look at volatility, back away from the screen for a second, yeah, volatility's up. But maybe you're thinking, it's kind of minimal, Don. Great. The bonds are also elevated. So the bonds being elevated could be a little bit of a defensive move. But here's the big one. The dollar. The dollar has a rip and move back to the upside over here. And I believe at this point, any sell-side activity inside of the S&Ps or world markets is going to be felt by buying inside of the dollar. I know that there's a ton of dollar bears out there. I am not one of them. I'm actually bullish inside of the dollar, which actually inversely makes me bearish inside of gold right now. Unfortunately, gold is feeling the brunt of the hit because of the rally inside of the dollar. And at this point in time, I don't look at the pop in dollar to the upside as anything but what? This is kind of risk on, risk off. When capital is flowing into the dollar, I kind of anticipate there's going to be some sell side activity. The fact that the dollar is up, the fact that the bonds are up, volatility is up, and that we're sitting right on the upper cusp of the expected move, all lead me to believe that we're going to see some sell-side activity. So much so that I don't like to just, talk about this, give you an opinion over here. I'm trading for it. When I say I'm trading for it, okay, for those of you that have actually tuned in for quite some time, this is going to get a little complex for a second here, but for those of you that have tuned in for quite some time, you will know that I am sitting with a heavy, negative delta position. Let's assume that I'm somewhere around like negative 3,000, SPY delta. Now, of course, that's going to be a beta weighted delta. So that would be my net position. Now, with my net position, I have been going out and I've actually been using a hedge. And the hedge I've been using, is inside of the QQQ. And that is actually a QQQ back spread. For those of you unfamiliar with the back spread, well, let me show you what my back spread happens to effectively look like. So I'm going to cruise over to the QQQ. I'm going to come down here to my account statement. And I'm going to show you precisely what I did. Yesterday, I actually pulled off, in the midst of the unbelievable rally inside of the Nasdaq, I pulled off almost all of my hedge. So again, if you think about this kind of in context, I'm sitting there with negative 3,000, SPY deltas. But then I also had about positive, to give you the exact number, is somewhere positive 700. QQQ beta weighted to SPY, but this worked out to SPY deltas. So net, what I have done with my position is, again, even though this says SPY, this was actually done in the QQQ, and it was done using a ratio back spread. So what I did is I was offsetting a degree of my risk. I'm short here, and I'm technically long here, but this long delta is nothing more than this back spread, and it's a hedge. So what did I do? I opened up the back spread. Yesterday, I actually closed most of the back spread. So without this hedge on anymore, I opened up to the full, the full Monty of about negative 3,000 SPY deltas. What I'm telling you right now is I opened up my risk quite considerably, looking for some sell side activity. And we're getting just that today. So we're already ahead of the game. But I wanted to enunciate to everybody that I had actually opened up my risk. Listen, the hedge, it worked. And it worked wonderfully. But any hedge that you put on, I don't want my hedge to work. And if you think about that, it sounds like, contradictory, but I don't want the hedge to work. I made a ton of money on the hedge. I wish the hedge never worked. The hedge is always going to be, again, that sacrificial lamb in terms of the trade. But as I said, I'm looking for some sell-side activity, to persist the remainder of this week. And as such, I opened up my own position to taking more directional risk. And I'll assess, again, in the next 24 to 48 hours, depending upon what the marketplace does. I'm going to react a little bit to the marketplace in this case. I opened up my risk. Now I'm taking the full, negative 3,000 deltas of risk, having taken off some of the hedge. And at this point, people, bring it! Bring on some sell-side activity, and hopefully things actually work out throughout the course of the week. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us here at TheoTrade. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.